The bullet tore through the silent Montana air as Logan James dove toward the young woman without hesitation, his body shielding hers as they crashed to the wooden boardwalk outside Willow Creek's general store. The year was 1878, and death came cheap in these parts, but not today, not for her, not if he could help it. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice a rough whisper against her ear as another shot splintered the post just inches from her head. The acrid smell of gunpowder mixed with the dust of the street, and Logan felt the warm wetness spreading across his side where the bullet had found its mark. Emma Keller hadn't even seen the gunman. One moment she'd been adjusting her bonnet against the harsh summer sun. The next she was beneath the protective weight of a stranger, a cowboy with eyes the color of a thunderstorm and blood staining his chambray shirt. "You're hurt," she gasped, her hands instinctively pressing against his wound. "It don't matter," Logan muttered, grimacing as he drew his Colt revolver and fired 3 quick shots toward the saloon across the street. The gunman ducked behind a water trough, cursing loudly. Emma's eyes flashed with determination. "It does to me," she said firmly, tearing a strip of fabric from her petticoat to press against his bleeding side. Sheriff Walter Reid and his deputy came running at the sound of gunfire, their boots pounding the dusty street as they converged on the saloon. The would-be assassin broke cover, making a desperate run for his horse. He didn't make it 10 feet before the sheriff's bullet found him. "Miss Keller, are you all right?" the sheriff called out, hurrying over as Emma struggled to support the wounded cowboy who'd saved her life. "I'm fine, but this man needs a doctor immediately," she replied, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Logan's face had gone ashen, his breathing labored as he fought to remain conscious. "Get him to Doc Wilson's place," Sheriff Reid instructed, helping Emma lift Logan to his feet. "And you, Miss Keller, might want to consider who you've been associating with lately that would cause someone to take a shot at you in broad daylight." Emma's face paled. "I don't understand, why would anyone?" But the sheriff just shook his head. "This ain't no random shooting. That was Jack Miller, one of the Blackwater Gang's hired guns. They don't send men like him unless they mean business." Logan groaned, his arms slung around Emma's shoulders as they shuffled toward the doctor's office. "Blackwater Gang," he muttered through clenched teeth. "What's a schoolteacher got to do with outlaws?" Emma's startled gaze met his. "How did you know I'm a teacher?" A ghost of a smile crossed his pain-etched face. "Chalk dust on your sleeve, ink stains on your fingers." His eyes briefly closed as a wave of pain washed over him. "And you've got that look." "What look?" she asked, desperately trying to keep him talking as they made their way down the street. "Like you're silently correcting my grammar," he replied with a weak chuckle that ended in a grimace. Dr. Wilson's office was mercifully close. The elderly physician looked up from his desk as they stumbled through the door, immediately clearing his examination table with a sweep of his arm. "Gunshot wound, right side," Emma explained as they eased Logan onto the table. "The bullet's still inside him." The doctor nodded grimly, already reaching for his instruments. "I'll need to operate immediately. Miss Keller, you should wait outside." "No," Logan's hand caught her wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. "Stay." His eyes, clouded with pain, searched hers. "Please." Emma hesitated, then nodded. "I'll stay." As the doctor worked to extract the bullet, Emma held Logan's hand, whispering words of encouragement. She didn't know why she felt so connected to this stranger who'd risked his life for hers, but something in his steady gaze had touched her soul. "What's your name?" she asked softly, wiping sweat from his brow with a cool cloth. "Logan," he managed between shallow breaths. "Logan James." "Thank you for saving my life, Mr. James." His lips curved slightly. "Logan," he corrected, "and anyone would have done the same." Emma shook her head. "No, they wouldn't have. Most men would have ducked for cover themselves. The doctor extracted the bullet with a sickening sound, dropping the bloody piece of metal into a basin. "You're a lucky man, Mr. James. Another inch to the left and we wouldn't be having this conversation." Logan's eyes never left Emma's face. "Then I'm feeling mighty fortunate right about now," he murmured. After the doctor had cleaned and bandaged the wound, Emma helped Logan to the small room behind the doctor's office where patients occasionally stayed overnight. Despite his protests that he could manage a ride to the boarding house, Dr. Wilson had insisted he remain under observation for at least a night. "I'll be back tomorrow to check on you," Emma promised as she helped him settle onto the narrow bed. "You need to rest." Logan caught her hand as she turned to leave. "Why was someone shooting at you, Miss Keller?" Emma's expression clouded. "I don't know. I truly don't. I'm just the schoolteacher. I arrived in Willow Creek 6 months ago from Boston." "Someone thinks you know something you shouldn't," Logan said, his eyes serious despite the pain evident in them. "Be careful, Miss Keller." "Emma," she said softly, "after what you did today, I think we're well past formalities, don't you?" He nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Emma," he repeated, as if testing how her name felt on his tongue, "promise me you'll go straight home and lock your doors tonight." She hesitated, then nodded. "I promise." The next morning dawned clear and bright, the blue Montana sky stretching endlessly above the small frontier town. Emma finished her breakfast quickly, anxious to check on Logan before heading to the schoolhouse. She'd barely slept, her dreams filled with gunshots and the memory of Logan's blood seeping through his shirt. When she arrived at the doctor's office, she was surprised to find Logan already dressed, wincing as he attempted to pull on his boots. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, rushing forward to stop him. "You need to rest." Logan looked up, his face still pale but his eyes clear. "Can't stay in bed all day. Got things to do." "Like reopening your wound." Emma crossed her arms, giving him what her students called her schoolmarm glare. "Dr. Wilson said you needed at least 3 days of rest." "Dr. Wilson isn't being hunted by the Blackwater Gang," Logan replied quietly. Emma froze. "What do you mean?" Logan sighed, gesturing for her to close the door. When she did, he continued in a low voice. "I didn't just happen to be passing by yesterday. I've been tracking the Blackwater Gang for 3 months now." "You're a lawman?" Emma asked, studying his weathered face. "Not exactly," he grimaced as he shifted position. "I was a Texas Ranger once, not anymore." "Then why are you after them?" Logan's eyes darkened with a pain that had nothing to do with his wound. "They killed my brother, hung him from a cottonwood tree after robbing his stagecoach, left his wife and children to fend for themselves." Emma's hand went to her mouth. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry," Logan said, his voice hardening. "Help me understand why they are after you." Emma shook her head helplessly. "I truly don't know. I'm just a schoolteacher. I came here from Boston after my parents died. I wanted a fresh start." Logan studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to believe her. Finally, he nodded. "Someone thinks you know something. Maybe something you don't even realize is important." "What should I do?" Emma asked, suddenly feeling very vulnerable. "First, you need to go teach your students," Logan said, surprising her. "Act normal, don't give anyone reason to think you're scared. And then I'm going to figure out why the most notorious gang in the territory wants you dead." Emma swallowed hard. "You're still injured." "You should be resting, not protecting me." Logan managed a small smile. "It don't matter." She reached out, her fingers gently brushing against the bandage visible beneath his partially buttoned shirt. "It does to me," she repeated softly. Their eyes held for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them before Emma reluctantly pulled away. "I have to get to the schoolhouse. The children will be waiting." "I'll be watching," Logan assured her. "Go on about your day as if nothing's happened." Throughout the day, Emma felt Logan's presence even though she rarely caught sight of him. She knew he was there, keeping watch from the shadows despite his injury. The thought both comforted and concerned her. Comforted because she felt safer knowing he was near, concerned because he should be resting instead of standing guard. When school dismissed for the day, Emma was surprised to find Sheriff Reed waiting outside. "Miss Keller, may I have a word?" he asked, removing his hat as the children scattered toward their homes. "Of course, Sheriff," she replied, glancing briefly at the alleyway where she suspected Logan was watching. "I've been doing some investigating into yesterday's incident," the sheriff said, following her back into the schoolhouse. "Jack Miller was a hired gun, like I said, but what I can't figure is why the Blackwater Gang would have any interest in a schoolteacher." Emma began cleaning the blackboard, grateful for something to do with her hands. "I've been wondering the same thing. Miss Keller, is there anything at all you might know that could be valuable to them? Maybe something you overheard or something someone gave you for safekeeping?" She shook her head. "Nothing I can think of, Sheriff. I lead a very ordinary life." The sheriff frowned. "What about before you came to Willow Creek? You said you came from Boston, right?" "Yes, after my parents died of influenza last year, I needed a change of scenery." "And the journey west, anything unusual happen along the way?" Emma paused, chalk in hand, as a memory surfaced. "Well, there was one strange occurrence. On the train from St. Louis to Helena, an elderly gentleman sat beside me. We talked a bit. He said he was heading to his daughter's ranch near Bozeman. When we reached Jefferson City, he suddenly seemed agitated, said he needed to stretch his legs. He asked if I would watch his satchel while he stepped out." "And did he return?" the sheriff pressed. Emma frowned. "No. The train departed, and he never came back. I told the conductor, but he just said the man must have decided to stay in Jefferson City. The satchel only contained some clothes and personal items, a shaving kit, some letters. I gave everything to the station master when I reached Helena in case the man came looking for his belongings." Sheriff Reed's expression grew thoughtful. "Everything? You didn't keep anything?" "Well," Emma hesitated. "There was a book, a copy of the Odyssey. He'd been reading it earlier and said it was his favorite. I'd mentioned I taught literature, and he inscribed it to me as a gift just before he left the train. It seemed harmless enough to keep." "Do you still have this book?" the sheriff asked, his voice suddenly urgent. "Yes, it's at my home," Emma replied, confused by his intensity. "Why, do you think it's important?" Before the sheriff could answer, the schoolhouse door opened. Logan stood in the doorway, his hand resting casually near his holstered gun. "Evening, Sheriff," he said, his voice deceptively calm. "Mind if I join this conversation?" Sheriff Reed's hand twitched toward his own weapon before he visibly relaxed. "Mr. James, heard you took a bullet yesterday. You're looking remarkably spry for an injured man." "I heal quick," Logan replied, stepping fully into the schoolroom and closing the door behind him. "Miss Keller was just telling you about a book, I believe." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "This doesn't concern you, James. A man tried to kill her in broad daylight." "I'd say that concerns anyone with a conscience," Logan countered, moving to stand beside Emma. "Especially since I took a bullet meant for her." Emma glanced between the two men, sensing a tension that went beyond the current situation. "Do you two know each other?" "We've crossed paths," Logan said, his gaze never leaving the sheriff. "In Texas, wasn't it, Reed? About 5 years back." Something flickered in the sheriff's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or wariness. "That was a long time ago, James. I'm a different man now." "Are you?" Logan's voice was soft, dangerous. "Because I'm wondering why the sheriff is so interested in a book that might be connected to the Blackwater Gang." The air in the schoolroom seemed to crackle with tension. Emma found herself unconsciously stepping closer to Logan. Sheriff Reed sighed heavily. "I'm trying to solve a crime, James. That's my job." "Then maybe we should continue this conversation at Miss Keller's house," Logan suggested. With the book present, the three of them walked to Emma's small cottage at the edge of town, the silence between them taut as a bowstring. Emma's mind raced with questions. How did Logan know the sheriff? Why was a simple book suddenly so important? And most puzzling of all, why did she trust this wounded cowboy she'd known for barely a day more than the town's sheriff she'd known for months? Emma's cottage was modest but neat, with a small garden out front and curtains she'd sewn herself adorning the windows. She unlocked the door, lighting a lamp before heading to the bookshelf in her sitting room. "Here it is," she said, pulling out a well-worn copy of the Odyssey. She handed it to the sheriff, who immediately began flipping through the pages. "What exactly are we looking for?" Emma asked, watching as Sheriff Reed examined the book with intense concentration. "Information," Logan answered for him. "The Blackwater Gang specializes in stagecoach and train robberies, but lately they've expanded into something more profitable, selling information about railroad shipments, army movements, and mining operations." The sheriff glanced up sharply. "You seem well informed for a former Texas Ranger." "I've been hunting them for 3 months," Logan replied evenly. "I know how they operate." Sheriff Reed returned to examining the book, running his fingers along the spine and checking between pages. Finally, he closed it with a frustrated sigh. "Nothing." Emma frowned. "Maybe it's not about the book itself. The man who gave it to me, he seemed educated, refined, not someone I would associate with outlaws." "What did he look like?" Logan asked. "Elderly, as I said. White hair and beard, well-dressed. He said his name was—" Emma paused, trying to remember. "Harrison. Edward Harrison." Logan and the sheriff exchanged a look. "Edward Harrison died 2 years ago," Logan said quietly. "He was a former Treasury agent who disappeared while investigating the Blackwater Gang." Emma sank into a chair, stunned. "But he couldn't have been." "He seemed so genuine." Sheriff Reed handed the book back to her. "May I see the inscription he wrote?" Emma opened to the first page, where spidery handwriting filled the margin. "To a fellow lover of literature, may you find wisdom in these ancient words as I have. The answers we seek are often hidden in plain sight, like Odysseus in the land of the Phaeacians." The land of the Phaeacians," Logan murmured. "That's where Odysseus told his story, revealed his true identity." Emma looked up at him, surprised. "You know Homer's work?" A small smile touched his lips. "My mother was a teacher before she married my father. She made sure her boys were educated, even on a cattle ranch." Sheriff Reed cleared his throat. "Poetic references aside, we need to figure out what information this man might have hidden, and why the Blackwater Gang thinks Miss Keller has it." "Maybe it's a cipher," Emma suggested, examining the book more closely. "Some of my students use simple codes to pass notes in class. Perhaps certain words or letters are meant to be read in sequence." Logan took the book gently from her hands, flipping through it with careful attention. "Or maybe—" He paused at a page where tiny dots appeared beneath certain letters. They were so faint they were almost invisible unless you knew to look for them. "There," he said, pointing to the marks. "That's not damage or age. Those are deliberate markings." Emma leaned closer, her shoulder brushing against Logan's as she peered at the page. "You're right. If we write down just those letters." She quickly fetched paper and pencil, and together they began the painstaking work of identifying each marked letter and transcribing them in sequence. The sheriff watched with growing impatience. "This could take hours," he complained after they'd only completed a few pages. Then perhaps you should return to your duties, Sheriff, Logan suggested, not looking up from the book. Miss Keller and I can continue this work. The sheriff hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave. I should stay. For Miss Keller's protection. I believe Mr. James has demonstrated his willingness to protect me, Emma said quietly, and you do have a town to look after. After the sheriff reluctantly departed, Logan's posture visibly relaxed. You don't trust him, Emma observed, setting down her pencil. Let's just say I have my reservations, Logan replied. Walter Reed was a ranger when I knew him in Texas. He left under questionable circumstances. There were rumors he'd been paid to look the other way during certain operations. You think he might be connected to the Blackwater Gang? Emma asked, alarmed. Logan shook his head. I don't know, but I do know we need to be careful about who we trust right now. They worked well into the night, deciphering the hidden message letter by letter. As the pattern emerged, Emma's hands began to tremble. It's a list, she whispered. Dates, locations, cargo manifests, information about gold shipments from Montana mines to banks in Helena and Denver. Logan nodded grimly. Exactly the kind of information the Blackwater Gang would kill for. With this, they could plan robberies months in advance, knowing exactly when and where the most valuable shipments would be moving. Emma set down her pencil, suddenly exhausted. So this man, whoever he was using me as an unwitting courier for this information. Looks that way, Logan agreed. He probably thought the book would be safer with you than on his person. The question is, how did the Blackwater Gang figure out you had it? Someone must have seen him give it to me on the train, Emma reasoned. And they've been watching, waiting for an opportunity. Logan rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. Or someone in town has been keeping an eye on you, reporting back to them. The realization that someone she knew, perhaps someone she interacted with daily, might be connected to outlaws sent a chill through Emma. What do we do now? First, we get some rest, Logan said, noticing her exhaustion. Tomorrow, we take this information to someone we can trust. And who would that be if not the sheriff? I know a federal marshal in Helena. He's been after the Blackwater Gang even longer than I have. This information could help him bring down their entire operation. Emma nodded, then hesitated. Will you stay here tonight? I don't think I could sleep otherwise. Logan's expression softened. I'll stay. I'll take the chair by the window. No, you're injured. You should take the bed. I can make up a pallet in the sitting room. Emma, Logan said firmly, I'm not taking your bed. I've slept under the stars for months tracking these men. A chair is luxury by comparison. She wanted to argue but could see the determination in his eyes. At least let me check your bandage before you settle in. Logan hesitated, then nodded. Emma gathered clean bandages and the herbal salve Dr. Wilson had provided. When Logan unbuttoned his shirt, she tried to maintain a professional demeanor, but couldn't help noticing the lean, muscled contours of his chest and the various scars that told stories of a life lived dangerously. The wound was red but clean, with no signs of infection. As Emma applied fresh salve and bandages, her fingers trembled slightly against his warm skin. You have gentle hands, Logan murmured, his voice deeper than usual. Emma glanced up, finding his gray eyes watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. My mother was skilled with herbal remedies. She taught me. She taught you well. His hand covered hers for a moment, warm and calloused. Thank you. That night, despite her exhaustion, Emma found sleep elusive. The knowledge that a dangerous gang was after her, combined with the awareness of Logan's protective presence in the next room, kept her mind racing. When dawn finally broke, she rose and quietly prepared coffee, finding Logan already awake and vigilant by the window. Did you sleep at all? She asked, handing him a steaming cup. "Enough," he replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. His eyes surveyed the street outside, ever watchful. "We should leave for Helena as soon as possible. It's a full day's ride." "I need to inform the school board I'll be absent," Emma said, mentally calculating what she needed to prepare. "And pack a few things." Logan nodded. "Make it quick. I'll arrange for horses." While Emma packed a small valise and wrote a note to the head of the school board citing a family emergency, Logan visited the livery stable. They agreed to meet at the edge of town in an hour, hoping to depart without drawing attention. Emma was just locking her cottage when she felt a presence behind her. Turning quickly, she found Sheriff Reed watching her, his expression unreadable. "Going somewhere, Miss Keller?" he asked, eyeing her valise. "I received word that my aunt is ill," Emma lied, praying her face didn't betray her. "I'm going to visit her for a few days." "Funny timing," the sheriff observed, "especially considering you were just targeted by hired guns." "I can't put my life on hold because of what happened," Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Besides, I'll be safer away from town for a while, don't you think?" Sheriff Reed stepped closer. "I think you're not being entirely truthful with me, Miss Keller, and I think your new friend Mr. James might be leading you into more danger, not less." "Mr. James saved my life," Emma stated firmly. "Did he tell you why he left the Rangers?" the sheriff asked. "Did he mention the bounty on his head in 3 states?" Emma's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm sure Mr. James has his reasons for whatever choices he's made. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to catch the morning stage." She moved to step around him, but the sheriff caught her arm. "The book, Miss Keller. Where is it?" In that moment, Emma knew with certainty that Sheriff Reed could not be trusted. "In my valise," she answered, forcing a confused expression. "Why, do you think it's valuable after all?" The sheriff released her arm. "Just curious. Have a safe journey, Miss Keller. Give my regards to your aunt." Emma hurried down the street, fighting the urge to look back. She took a circuitous route to the meeting place, constantly checking to ensure she wasn't being followed. When she finally reached the cluster of cottonwood trees at the town's edge, she was relieved to find Logan waiting with 2 saddled horses. "The sheriff knows," she said without preamble, breathless from her rushed walk. "He stopped me outside my cottage, asked specifically about the book." Logan's expression hardened. "I was afraid of that. We need to move fast. Can you ride?" "Yes, though it's been some time," Emma admitted, allowing Logan to help her mount. "Stay close to me and keep up as best you can," he instructed, swinging into his own saddle with a barely concealed wince. His wound was clearly still causing him pain, though he wouldn't admit it. They set off at a steady pace, following game trails rather than the main road to Helena. Logan seemed to know the terrain well, guiding them through shallow creek beds and dense stands of pine that would make them difficult to track. As they rode, Emma found herself studying the man beside her. Logan James was a contradiction, gentle yet formidable, educated yet rugged. She wondered about the life he'd led, the experiences that had carved those lines around his eyes and given him that watchful demeanor. "Is it true?" she finally asked as they stopped to rest the horses near a small stream. "What Sheriff Reed said about there being a bounty on your head in 3 states, Logan's jaw tightened. 2 states, not 3, and the bounties aren't legitimate. They were placed by the Blackwater Gang to keep me from getting too close. And why did you leave the Rangers?" Emma ventured, unsure if she was overstepping. Logan was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the distant mountains. "My brother and I were both Rangers," he finally said. "We were investigating corruption within the local government in a small Texas town. Officials were taking bribes to allow cattle rustling and other crimes to go unpunished. We were getting close to exposing everyone involved when my brother was killed. I'm sorry, Emma said softly. The official report claimed he was killed by rustlers, but I knew better. He was murdered by someone who wanted to keep their involvement secret. Logan's voice was flat, emotionless, but Emma could sense the pain beneath his words. When I continued the investigation, suddenly I was accused of taking bribes myself. Evidence was falsified. I had a choice: stay and face a corrupt trial, or leave and seek justice my own way. So you chose to clear your name by finding the real criminals, Emma concluded. Logan nodded. The trail led me to the Blackwater Gang. They've expanded far beyond simple robbery now. They control officials in multiple territories, selling information and protection. And your brother's killers, still out there, Logan admitted. But the Blackwater Gang is connected to them. I'm sure of it. Bring them down and I'll find the men responsible for my brother's death. Emma reached out impulsively, covering his hand with hers. I'll help you however I can. Logan looked surprised, then gave her hand a gentle squeeze. You already are. That book you carried might be the key to ending their operation. They continued their journey, riding through the afternoon as the mountains grew closer. Logan set a challenging pace, but Emma kept up without complaint, determined not to slow them down despite her aching muscles. As dusk approached, Logan led them to a small canyon where a crude cabin nestled against the rock face, nearly invisible until they were upon it. Trapper's cabin, he explained as they dismounted. Abandoned years ago, but I've used it as a way station before. The cabin was basic but sound, with a small fireplace and rough-hewn furniture. Logan checked the perimeter thoroughly before allowing Emma inside, then tended to the horses while she swept away dust and cobwebs. It's only about 4 more hours to Helena from here, Logan said as he built a small fire. But it's too dangerous to travel at night in this terrain. We'll rest here and leave at first light. Emma nodded, unpacking the simple provisions they'd brought: jerky, hard bread, and coffee. As they shared the modest meal, she found herself studying Logan's face in the firelight, noticing how it softened his features, making him look younger, less burdened. Why did you do it? She asked suddenly. Jump in front of a bullet for a woman you didn't even know. Logan seemed taken aback by the question. Instinct, I suppose. I saw the gun, saw where it was aimed, and just reacted. Most men's instinct would be self-preservation, Emma pointed out. A faint smile touched his lips. Maybe I'm not most men. No, Emma agreed softly. You're certainly not. Their eyes met across the small fire, and Emma felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the flames. There was something about Logan James that called to her: his quiet strength, his unwavering sense of right and wrong, the gentle way he looked at her when he thought she wouldn't notice. Logan cleared his throat, breaking the moment. You should get some rest. Take the cot. I'll keep watch. You're injured and need rest as much as I do, Emma protested. We can share the cot. I trust you to be a gentleman. Logan's eyes widened slightly. That wouldn't be proper. Neither is running from outlaws with a man I barely know, Emma replied with a small smile. I think we're well past proper, Mr. James. After a moment's hesitation, Logan nodded. They arranged themselves on the narrow cot, back to back, a respectable distance maintained despite the confined space. Emma was acutely aware of his warmth, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the faint scent of leather and pine that seemed to cling to him. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. From the tension in Logan's body, she suspected he was equally awake. Tell me about your life before all this, she said softly into the darkness. Before the Rangers, before the bounties. There was a long silence, and Emma thought perhaps he wouldn't answer. Then his deep voice rumbled in the quiet cabin. I grew up on a cattle ranch near Austin. My father was a hard man but fair. My mother was gentle, educated seemed an odd match, but they loved each other fiercely. A note of fondness entered his voice. She'd read to us every night, my brother and me. Shakespeare, Dickens, Homer. Father thought it was impractical, but he never interfered. She sounds wonderful, Emma murmured. She was. Died of fever when I was 16. Father followed 3 years later, thrown from a horse. Logan shifted slightly on the cot. My brother and I kept the ranch going for a while, then sold it when we both joined the Rangers. Seemed like a way to do some good in the world. And now, Logan was quiet for a moment. Now I just want justice for my brother, for his family. He hesitated. And maybe, when it's done, a simpler life somewhere. What kind of life? Emma asked, genuinely curious. Land of my own, perhaps. Cattle. A place where a man can see the stars at night without watching for ambush. His voice softened. Maybe someone to share it with someday. The vulnerability in his tone made Emma's heart ache. She resisted the urge to turn and face him, sensing he was sharing parts of himself rarely revealed. That sounds lovely, she whispered. What about you? Logan asked. What does Emma Keller want from life? Emma considered the question. I came west seeking adventure, I suppose. My life in Boston was predictable. Teaching was my passion, but after my parents died, the familiar streets felt confining rather than comforting. She smiled into the darkness. I wanted wide open spaces, new faces, the chance to build something of my own. And have you found it? What you were looking for? Emma thought about the small school in Willow Creek, the children she'd grown to love, the community that had welcomed her. And now this unexpected adventure with a complicated, honorable man who'd risked his life for hers. I'm beginning to, she admitted softly. They fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts as the fire burned low. Eventually, Emma drifted to sleep, comforted by Logan's steady presence beside her. She woke to the gray light of dawn and the sound of movement. Logan was already up, checking his weapons and peering cautiously out the small window. Something wrong? She asked, sitting up and quickly smoothing her rumpled dress. Not sure, Logan replied, his voice tense. Thought I heard something. Could be nothing deer or elk. Could be someone found our trail. Emma quickly gathered their few belongings while Logan saddled the horses. They ate a hasty breakfast of jerky and water, then prepared to depart. Just as they were about to leave the cabin, the unmistakable sound of approaching hoofbeats reached their ears. Logan immediately pushed Emma behind him, drawing his revolver. Stay inside, he ordered in a hushed voice. If anything happens to me, take the back trail through the canyon. It leads to a homestead about 5 miles east. The family there, the Hansons, they'll help you. I'm not leaving you, Emma insisted, her heart pounding. Before Logan could argue, a voice called out from beyond the cabin. James, I know you're in there. Come out and face me like a man. Emma's blood ran cold. That's Sheriff Reed. Logan's expression darkened. I was afraid of this. He must have followed our trail. What do? We talk, Logan decided. But keep the book hidden and stay behind me. They stepped outside to find Sheriff Reed and 3 other men on horseback, rifles trained on the cabin door. Emma recognized 2 of the men as locals from Willow Creek, the blacksmith's son, and a ranch hand from the Peterson place. The third was a stranger with a hard face and cold eyes. Morning, Reed, Logan called, his voice deceptively casual despite the gun held loosely at his side. Quite a reception committee. Hand over the book and the girl, James, Reed demanded. No need for this to get messy. And if I don't? Logan asked, subtly positioning himself more fully in front of Emma. Reed smirked. Then Collins here gets to practice his marksmanship. He nodded toward the cold-eyed stranger. I hear he rarely misses. You're with them, Emma said, the full realization hitting her. You work for the Blackwater Gang. Smart lady, Reed acknowledged. Yes, I've found it more profitable to cooperate with certain interests than to fight them on a sheriff's salary. You disgrace that badge, Logan said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Reed shrugged. Maybe so, but I'll be a wealthy man when we recover those shipping schedules. Now enough talk. The book, James. Now. Emma felt Logan tense beside her, knew he was calculating odds, planning his move. With 3 rifles aimed at them, those odds weren't good. The book's not here, Emma said suddenly, stepping slightly to the side despite Logan's attempt to keep her behind him. It's hidden somewhere you'll never find it. Reed's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Am I? Emma challenged. We knew someone was following us. Did you really think we'd carry the evidence with us? Logan caught on immediately. She's right, Reed. The book's on its way to Helena in the hands of a federal marshal. You're too late. Reed's face contorted with rage. You're lying. He turned to the cold-eyed man. Collins, persuade them to be more cooperative. Collins raised his rifle, aiming deliberately at Logan's chest. Where should I start? His shoulder. Maybe a kneecap. What happened next unfolded so quickly Emma could barely process it. Logan shoved her roughly to the side as he dove in the opposite direction, firing 2 rapid shots as he moved. His first bullet caught Collins in the arm, causing his rifle to discharge harmlessly into the air. The second hit one of the Willow Creek men in the shoulder, knocking him from his horse. Reed and the remaining man returned fire as Logan rolled behind a water trough, bullets splintering the wood around him. Emma scrambled behind a stack of firewood, heart pounding as she watched the deadly exchange. Logan was outgunned and in the open. Even as he fired again, catching the 3rd man in the leg, Reed was circling to get a better angle. Emma knew with sickening certainty that Logan couldn't hold them all off. Her gaze fell on the rifle propped inside the cabin doorway, the one Logan had left there when they'd exited. If she could reach it. Taking a deep breath, Emma waited until Reed's attention was fully on Logan, then made a desperate dash for the cabin. A bullet whistled past her ear as Collins, despite his wounded arm, spotted her movement. She reached the rifle, hands shaking as she grabbed it and turned. She'd never fired a gun before, but her father had believed women should know how to protect themselves. He'd shown her the basics: how to load, aim, and squeeze the trigger gently rather than pull it. Raising the rifle, Emma took aim at Reed just as he was about to fire at Logan from behind. Her shot went wide, but it was enough to startle Reed, making his own shot go astray. Logan seized the opportunity, putting a bullet in Reed's thigh that sent him tumbling from his horse with a pained howl. In moments, the tide had turned. With Reed and 2 of his men wounded and the 3rd surrendering quickly, Logan secured their weapons and bound their injuries with strips torn from their own shirts. "Are you all right?" he asked Emma, his eyes scanning her for injuries as he approached. She nodded, still clutching the rifle, her hands trembling with fading adrenaline. "I've never shot at anyone before." Logan gently took the rifle from her white-knuckled grip. "You were brave. You saved my life." "We saved each other," Emma corrected, suddenly overwhelmed by how close they'd come to death. Without thinking, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Logan's waist, pressing her face against his chest. After a moment's hesitation, his arms encircled her, holding her close as the tension of the firefight slowly ebbed from their bodies. "We need to get these men to Helena," Logan said eventually, though he seemed reluctant to release her. "The marshal there will want to question them." Emma nodded, stepping back and composing herself. "Of course." They bound the prisoners to their horses, with Logan leading Reed's mount and Emma taking charge of the others. The journey to Helena took longer with their wounded captives, but by late afternoon they reached the territorial capital. Marshal Daniel Foster was a gruff, gray-haired man with keen eyes that missed nothing. He listened to their story with growing interest, examining the book and the coded information they'd extracted from it. "This is exactly what we needed," he said when they'd finished their explanation. "We've suspected for years that the Blackwater Gang had informants throughout the territory, but we could never prove it. This, combined with Reed's testimony, could bring down their entire network." "Reed will talk to save himself?" Emma asked. The marshal's smile was cold. "When faced with a hanging, most men discover they have a great deal to say." Over the next several days, Emma and Logan remained in Helena as guests of the marshal while the investigation unfolded. Reed, facing the gallows, indeed proved talkative, providing names, dates, and locations that allowed the marshal to arrest several corrupt officials and business owners throughout the territory. "The Blackwater Gang is finished," Marshal Foster announced one evening as they shared dinner at his home. "Their leadership is in custody, their informants arrested or on the run. It's the end of an era of corruption in Montana, thanks to you too." Logan nodded, but Emma could see that something still troubled him. Later, as they walked back to their hotel in the cool evening air, she asked, "What's wrong? I thought you'd be pleased with the outcome." Logan was quiet for a moment. "I am. But the man who ordered my brother's death wasn't among those arrested. According to Reed, he's in California now, living under a new name." Emma's heart sank. "So your quest isn't over?" "No," Logan admitted, "but it's closer to an end than it was before." They stopped outside the hotel, the street quiet save for distant piano music drifting from a saloon. Emma studied Logan's face in the lamplight, saw the weariness there, but also the determination. "When will you leave?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the sudden hollow feeling in her chest. "Tomorrow," Logan replied, his eyes meeting hers. "Foster gave me the information I need. The sooner I finish this, the sooner I can." He trailed off. "The sooner you can what?" Emma pressed gently. Logan took a step closer. "The sooner I can start that simpler life I told you about, land of my own, cattle, the stars at night." Emma's heart quickened. "It sounds wonderful." "It would be," Logan said softly, "especially if I had someone to share it with." The implication hung in the air between them, fragile and full of possibility. Emma took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Logan, these past days, as dangerous and frightening as they've also been the most alive I've ever felt. And much of that is because of you." His expression softened. "Emma, let me finish," she said quickly. "I understand you have something you need to complete, a promise to keep to your brother, but when it's done—" She hesitated, then continued with determination. "When it's done, I hope you'll consider Willow Creek as a place to settle. The children there need a good example of honor and courage, and I would very much like to see you again." Logan reached out slowly, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "I was going to ask if you'd wait for me," he admitted. "But I wasn't sure I had the right." "Because of the danger?" Emma asked, leaning slightly into his touch. "Because I've been running for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to stay in one place." His thumb brushed lightly across her cheekbone. "But for you, Emma Keller, I think I could learn." Emma's heart soared at his words. "Then ask me." Logan's eyes, usually so guarded, were open now, vulnerable and hopeful. "Will you wait for me, Emma? It won't be more than a few months. And when I return, I'll be free to start anew to be the man you deserve." Instead of answering with words, Emma rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was brief but full of promise, and when she pulled back, Logan's expression was one of wonder. "I'll take that as a yes," he murmured, a smile spreading slowly across his face. "It's a yes," Emma confirmed. "I'll wait. True to his word, Logan departed the next morning, carrying Marshall Foster's information and Emma's heart with him. Their goodbye was bittersweet, but filled with hope for the future. Emma returned to Willow Creek, where she was greeted with curiosity and concern. The town had been in an uproar after the disappearance of Sheriff Reed and the subsequent revelation of his corruption. Emma shared only what was necessary: that Reed had been involved with outlaws and had been arrested. She kept Logan's role and her own, mostly private. The town appointed a new sheriff, an honest former soldier named Henry Miller, and life gradually returned to normal. Emma threw herself into her teaching, starting a small library in the schoolhouse with books donated by townspeople and ordered from catalogs. Letters from Logan arrived sporadically, brief but heartfelt messages that told of his progress without revealing too many dangerous details. Emma treasured each one, reading them by lamplight in her cottage and counting the days until his return. 3 months stretched into 4, then 5. Emma tried not to worry, reminding herself that Logan was capable and careful. Still, each day without word made her heart grow heavier. Then, on a crisp autumn afternoon, as Emma was dismissing her students, a rider appeared at the edge of town. Even at a distance, she would know that silhouette anywhere: the broad shoulders, the familiar way he sat a horse. Her heart leapt into her throat as she watched Logan James ride slowly down Willow Creek's main street. He looked different, more rested, less haunted. His clothes were new, his face freshly shaven. But his eyes, those storm-gray eyes, were the same as they sought her out and found her standing on the schoolhouse steps. Emma wanted to run to him, but made herself walk instead, conscious of the curious gazes of her students and the townspeople. Logan dismounted as she approached, removing his hat in a gesture that was both respectful and endearingly nervous. "Miss Keller," he said formally, though his eyes held warmth that belied his tone. "Mr. James," she replied, struggling to maintain her composure. "You've returned." "I have." He glanced around at the onlookers, then back to her. "Might I have a word in private?" Emma nodded, leading him into the empty schoolhouse and closing the door. The moment they were alone, Logan's formal demeanor vanished. He crossed the room in 2 strides, gathering her into his arms and kissing her with all the passion of a man who'd been dreaming of this moment for months. When they finally parted, both breathless, Emma rested her forehead against his chest. "I take it your business is concluded." Logan's laugh was free and genuine, a sound Emma hadn't heard before. "Yes, completely. The man who ordered my brother's death will face justice. It's over, Emma, really over." "And now?" she asked, looking up at him. "Now," Logan said, taking her hands in his, "I start that simpler life I've been dreaming of. I've purchased land about 10 miles from town, good grazing land with a creek running through it. There's a small house that needs some work, but it's solid. With time and care, it could be a real home." Emma's heart swelled with joy. "It sounds perfect." "Almost perfect," Logan corrected, his expression growing serious. "There's just one thing missing." He released her hands, reaching into his pocket to withdraw a small velvet box. Emma's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a simple but elegant gold ring with a single pearl. "I know we haven't known each other long," Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. "But when you've lived the way I have, you learn to recognize what matters. And you, Emma Keller, matter more to me than anything in this world." He knelt before her, holding the ring up. "I'm not a wealthy man, and the life I'm offering won't be easy, but I promise to love you and protect you for all my days if you'll have me. Emma, will you marry me?" Tears of happiness blurred Emma's vision as she nodded emphatically. "Yes, Logan James. Yes, I will marry you." As Logan slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her again, Emma knew their journey was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead: a ranch to build, perhaps children to raise, a community to become part of. But facing those challenges together, with love and trust between them, seemed not daunting but exciting, the greatest adventure yet. 6 months later, on a perfect spring day, Emma and Logan were married in Willow Creek's small church. The town had embraced Logan after learning how he had helped bring down the corrupt sheriff and the notorious Blackwater Gang. His quiet strength and unfailing integrity had won over even the most skeptical residents. Emma continued teaching, riding to and from town each day on a gentle mare Logan had given her as a wedding present. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch of their expanded ranch house, watching the sunset and talking about their days. And sometimes, when the night was clear and the stars shone like diamonds above the Montana plains, Logan would point out constellations to Emma, his arm around her shoulders, his voice soft with contentment. "Remember that first night in the trapper's cabin?" he would ask. "When I told you what I wanted most was land of my own, cattle and the stars at night. And someone to share it with," Emma would add, nestling closer to him. Logan's kiss would be gentle on her forehead. "I got everything I wished for and more." On such nights, Emma would often think back to that fateful day in Willow Creek when a bullet meant for her had found this remarkable man instead. How close they had come to never knowing each other, never building this life together. "It don't matter," Logan had said of his wound that day, dismissing his own sacrifice. "It does to me," Emma had insisted, not knowing then how profoundly true those words would become, how much everything about this honorable, courageous man would come to matter to her, shaping the course of her life in ways she could never have imagined. And as their family grew, first with a son they named after Logan's brother, and then a daughter with Emma's gentle spirit and Logan's determined eyes, their love deepened into something so essential it seemed it had always been part of them, as natural and necessary as breathing. The bullet scar on Logan's side faded with time, but never disappeared completely, a permanent reminder of the day their paths had crossed, when a wounded cowboy had protected a stranger and changed both their lives forever.